All praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Makar Kodash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. This is going to be a video on Acts chapter 1 and verse 6, where the disciples came to Yahushai and asked when he was going to restore the kingdom again to the Israelites. And I'm going to read it. This is Acts chapter 1 and verse 6. When they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? Right? And this is his reply. And he said unto them, it is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father have put in his own power. All right. So he was saying it's not for you to know when that time is. He wasn't saying, no, it's not going to happen. And let's look at this word restore again. All right. It says to restore to its former state. All right. To restore to its former state, or to be in its former state. To the old ancient disciples was asking, right, when is Yahushai, or is it this time now that Yahushai is going to return the kingdom again to its former state, right? To the time where it was previously, man, right? To the time that it was previously. That's what he was asking. And let's see what it says. It says royal power. This is the word for kingdom. I don't know how to say that, so I think it's Basile, and it says royal power, kingship, dominion, rule. All right, not to be confused with an actual kingdom, but rather the right or authority to rule over a kingdom. That doesn't make sense to me, but this is talking about a kingdom, right? It is talking about the kingdom of heaven that the Israelites are going to be in charge of, man. But other definitions say a kingdom, the territory subject to the rule. But I'm gonna listen to this. I'm gonna take into account this word here, dominion, and then now I'm gonna go to some scriptures. All right. Salakia. All right, here we go. This is Daniel chapter 7 and verse 27. And I'm going back to that word dominion that it said there. This is Daniel chapter 7 and verse 27. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him. Now, these disciples would have been aware of this particular prophecy, right? And they thought at that time that it was the time now for that particular prophecy to take place. They thought back then that that was the time that that prophecy was going to take place. What other prophecy did they understand? Right? Daniel chapter 2 and verse 44. And in the days of these kings shall the power of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. So they also understood that prophecy, right? Let's go to some more. And they thought that that was the time where that prophecy was going to take place. But let's go to some more. This is Daniel's chapter, this is Jeremiah chapter 30. And in fact, let me jump up a bit. This is Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 8. But they shall serve Yahweh their power, and David their king, whom I shall raise up unto them. Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith Yahweh, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity, and Jacob shall return and be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. So they thought at that time that all of these prophecies was going to be fulfilled, man. They was asking him, is now the time that these prophecies are going to be fulfilled? But it wasn't time yet. That time is now. That time's approaching now, man. Because now the Charagma, Revelation 13 and 16, these things are taking place. Now these things are actually able to happen. Whereas back in times past, they wasn't able to produce a Charagma to put inside people's body that they can use to make people buy or sell. But they have the technology now, because now is the time. Verse 11, for I am with thee, saith Yahweh, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all nations whither I have scattered thee, yet I will not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and not leave thee altogether unpunished. So these are some of the prophecies that the disciples was asking whether they're going to come to pass, man. Let's go to some more. Amos chapter 9 and verse 11. In that day I will raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof, and I will raise up his ruins, and build as the days of old. So they was asking, they was thinking, and this was going to come to pass as well. Was it that now that the kingdom is going to be put back into its former state? But it wasn't the time then, right? That wasn't the time, man. They thought that was the time, but it wasn't. They thought, they was wondering, is this the time now? We're going to be under the new covenant. They was wondering all these things, man. They had all these questions about whether now is the time. Joel chapter 3 and verse 21. Joel chapter 3 and verse 21. Joel chapter 3 and verse 19. Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness, for the violence against the children of Judah, because ye have shed innocent blood in their land. But Judah shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. They was wondering if this was the time that this was going to be fulfilled as well, but they didn't understand that certain things from the book of Joel hadn't even happened yet too. And people can say, how can you say that the people of the ancient time didn't know? Well, because it hasn't happened, has it? That's how we know. Because the kingdom still yet has not taken place, man. And certain things from the Old Testament books that they would have had access to, right? Certain prophets that they would have had access to prophesied on things that they had not even experienced in their lifetime, or that had not been experienced prior to them being born, right? They didn't know these things. That's why when you ever read the book of Revelation, it's spoken in the things are worded in the way that it's worded, because if we was to see the vision that John saw on the Isle of Patmos, we'd explain it based on what things we know now. So it would be worded a completely different way. But then if people that have born 2,000 years later was to hear about visions that we had, explaining it the way we explain it, they'd be trying to use the terms that they've now made for the current time that they're living in. And they'd be thinking that the way we're talking now, how we talk now, was worded in a strange speech too. And that's what people don't understand when they see things from the Bible, man. Let me get another thing that the Israelites would have been questioning whether it's going to be happening again. Ezekiel chapter 37. Ezekiel 37. Ezekiel 37 and 21. And say unto them, thus saith Yahweh, power, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whither they be gone, and I will gather them on every side, and bring them into their own land, and I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them all, and they shall be no more two kingdoms, neither shall they be divided into, and they shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms any more at all. So they was wondering if this was going to take place. Verse 23, neither shall they defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions, but I will save them out of all their dwelling places wherein they have sinned, and I will cleanse them, so they shall be my people, and I will be their God. And David my servant shall be king over them, and they shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my statutes and observe my statutes and do them. So they wanted the kingdom back then, man. And they was wondering if this is the time that kingdom was going to take place. Verse 26, moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. And of course, the Israelites back then would have been wanting the kingdom, because Yahushai's death would have been fresh, man. And they would have been angry at that. They would have been mourning. They would have been angry, and they would have been happy when they saw him, man. And they would have been thinking, is this the time now? And if it would have been the time now, they would have been down for that, man. But people are trying to make out like Yahushai just came to save everybody. But his disciples knew that the kingdom of Israel was one day getting ready to be restored. And what's going to happen when the kingdom of Israel is restored? Let's go to another prophecy that they would have known. Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 2, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, being it's going to be restored again, as they asked, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it, and many people shall go and say, come ye and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the power of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. So they was understanding that they was going to have a kingdom that they're in charge of, man. And they was wondering whether that was the time that these things was going to be fulfilled. They wanted to know if it was the time for these prophecies to take place. They wanted to know that. Verse 4, and he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Right? They wanted to know if these things were going to be made to take place back then, but it wasn't the time back then, because other things had not been fulfilled yet. Right? Other things had not been fulfilled yet, man. Other Old Testament prophecies, they didn't even understand at that point that some of them things had not taken place yet. And that's why they made that statement and asked that question. They wanted to know, but it was not the time. And when you actually see and read the Bible and hear the conversation that Yahushua had with his disciples at several points, I'm not going to say he would become annoyed with them, but at several points he would like say, oh, you have little faith, right? Or have your hearts yet been hardened? And he would question them on things, man. He would question them as to why they fell asleep, why couldn't you stay awake to pray with me or to pray. He told them to rise up out of sleep and pray, lest they fall into temptation, man. And that's what brothers more than likely on this side are doing, man. They might be asleep and they're like, man, I'm just gonna wake up and pray. They'll just wake up out of their sleep to pray, man. They'll turn to the east and they'll pray. That's what's happening, man. And we're waiting and desiring for the kingdom to come. But Christians, when they're reading the Bible, they don't understand that this kingdom that's coming is only going to be given to the Israelites, man. They don't understand these things, though. They don't understand that the kingdom is not for everybody. They don't get it, man. They don't get it, but we do. We know that it's not for everybody. Verse 4, and he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. So when we're in charge, when that kingdom of Israel does get restored again, the Israelites are going to be judging among the nations, and they're going to be rebuking people, and they're going to make every single nation beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. They're going to be burning the weapons, man. The Israelites are going to be making sure the weapons get burnt. There ain't going to be no more guns going off. There ain't going to be no more tanks and all them weapons of warfare. All that stuff's going to get destroyed, man, and turned. The materials are going to get turned into other things, man. Things to help the world grow, rather than things to destroy it. Which is further proof that the Israelites are not in charge, as people in the world try and claim that they are, and they want to talk all this anti this and anti that, but really it's just anti criticism, right? But they call it some other anti stuff, but really it's just anti criticism, right? That's what it really is. But if there was the people in charge, they would be fulfilling. If there was really the people, they'd be making this stuff happen, man. But they're not. And why is that? Because they're not the people, man. They're the other nation that was promised the fatness of the earth from Genesis, the 27th chapter. They're the other people that was promised the fatness of the earth, man. And that's why they're in power. Because they're those people that was promised the fatness of the earth and the blessing of the sword. They're not the people that was promised the fatness of the earth and received the blessing of the Lord. They're not the descendants of the people that Abraham was told, your descendants are going to live for 430 years or going to be in captivity for 400 years, for 400 years. And I'm going to give unto them the land of Canaan. They're not those people, man. That's not them. I'm going to end the lesson there. All praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Ba'Shem Rakah Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect to the nation of Israel. Shalom.